up and was like, I'm gonna take a really fast shower and get breakfast.
You were gonna take a really dumb.
Yeah, I was gonna do that.
Well, I
too.
mean, we do that.
That was
so-
implied.
We did have barbecue last night.
I know. That's what I'm.
So, I guess introduction or something.
You
but
start.
I mean,
Yeah, I assume a lot of you guys were here yesterday for the introduction, but I'm Bryson. I'm a voice actor, mainly for Sentai Filmworks, and I've also done some things at Narration, including Haikyuu, Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in the Dungeon, Food Wars, I play Talk Me in that, and a few other things.
Hi, I'm Bret Weaver. I'm also a voice actor. He's new hotness. I'm old school. For the past 22 years, I've been a voice actor in various shows. If you jog my memory, I'll be like, oh yeah, I was in that. Let's see. I had already said One Piece. I already said Macross. I already said Martian Successor Nadesco. I was in Witchblade. I was in. I'm trying to think of the more obscure. Go Danner. I was the lead in Go Danner. Go Saratari. I was Nabasheen in anything with Nabasheen in it. And yeah, and I'll answer whatever questions that I can remember.
And Attack on Titan too? Or?
Yeah, Attack on Titan. Yeah, sure.
I'm Bret. My pen name is Ogawa Burukku. I've been living in Japan for 16 years, and I've been working independently and for publishers as a comic or manga artist. So right now I'm working on my own independent thing, but pretty much the second my kid gets into daycare, because she's 2, I'm working with Kodansha. They have a magazine called Morning, and I've got an editor over there, and we're gonna start doing some stuff. So I don't know what we're gonna make, but I can talk about that process, and I can talk about doing independent comics. My series is called Fallen, if you've heard of it. If not, you should check out my table, because I've got books for sale. And if you've got questions on the manga making process, I've also got a panel tomorrow, today, where I can talk more about that. But if you have any questions about Japan or being like in the art industry at all, anything like that, I can probably help you out.
Cool.
So this is Q&A panel, so if you guys have any questions.
Please give some cues.
Otherwise, I'm just saying.
No way otherwise.
I guess I'll start. All right, out of all the shows that you've worked on, which is the one that you have the fondest memories of? Like you were just had the blast working on? The first that comes to mind.
I think for me it was probably, well, the one that stood out to me the most was whenever I got to do Danmachi, which is Wrong to Pick Up Girls for a Dungeon. In a Dungeon, it's the shortened version of it. I got to play Bell in that, and he was my first lead ever. And up to that point, I had only done like bit parts and like named roles, but they only said like 2 or 3 things. So I got to audition for that, and I got cast for it. It was my first, because the studio that I go to, they tend to just kind of cast if it's not the lead or something. They're just like, oh, we need a boy. Get him in, something like that. But if it's like the lead, they actually audition, and I was lucky enough that like the first time I had to actually audition for a role, I got it, and it was a lot of fun to work on that, especially since a lot of that cast was some people that I grew up listening to in other shows that I watched. Like Lucy plays the other lead, and it was great being able to work on something like that.
So, 16 years ago? So 16 years ago, I think it was, there's a show that ADV did called Dragon Half.
Oh, you remember?
Yeah, I was Damarama, which was so much fun because we got to do a little bit of character breakdown just to figure out who this guy was. And the way that character, Damarama, was, he always referred to himself in the third person. The great Damarama. Always, every time. And we were trying, like, man, the ego on this guy. And Matt Greenfield was the director. He goes, no, Damoromo is not got a big ego. He's so stupid. He has to say his name, else he'll forget it. And I was like, oh, this is the best. And there was that show was so weird. If you that's an old school anime that you should watch. It's only 2 episodes. It's that's what they said. Yeah, I heard that they said that. I mean, that was the rumor.
That was the rumor. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
But it was supposed to go on because they had like a preview for the next episode, and there was.
There's only 2 because it didn't do well in Japan. Is what happened.
It
But
was great
here we loved it.
Yeah.
But it's just, and Jessica Calvello was the lead in that, and Amanda Wynn and Tiffany Grant, and we were all the old school people. And that was so much fun because just everything was so stupid and over the top that we really felt like we were on drugs when we were.
And the ending theme is like my omelet, is what it's called.
And it's done to Beethoven.
Yeah.
To Beethoven.
It's good. So I used to do, I've done like narration work and voice acting too, but I don't talk about it because it's like, none of you guys, I've done Elite Beat Agents.
And I played it, so.
Yeah, so if you played it, they cut out 90% of our lines, but other than that, and most of the stuff that I've done has been apps or like in Japan stuff. But I was in a drama once, and I had to. I was right behind the lead actors, and they were like, "All you have to do is play on your phone," and I was like, "Okay." And the whole time I was watching these actors, and they were performing, and the female lead, I don't remember who she was, but they were like, "We need to do another take," and every single take she did exactly the same. And we were there for 15 minutes, and all she said was, "Yes, mother." And she did it every single take, the exact same way. And you would see the director go over to the side and like take off his hat and just do this. And then go, oh, she must have been like an idol or something where they're famous, but they're not necessarily like cut out for, they're not really actors. But it was like, and I was right there the whole time, and I was just like, oh my God, I have the best part because I can just sit here and check my email. My friends we were in an airport, so they had to walk back and forth with luggage, with wearing heavy coats on, even though it was summer because it was a winter drama. And they were I think they lost like 4 pounds after that. And I was like, I organized my files. And
why are all these people cold and yet they're sweating? Are they sick?
Yeah, it was pretty stupid. But I got paid on site, so I went home with money in my pocket and I cleared my emails. Yeah, it's good. It's a good deal.
Secondary care, or background care.
Yeah, being an extra is the best.
I understand that there are that like the big gig in like New York and for the New York shows is to be a body.
Oh, like for like a crime show?
For crime shows,
Yeah.
like the people that are always fighting to be the body.
Yeah. The featured extra.
Yes.
Like,
What are you? I just died. I had a friend that there was a show he did called Houston Nights where he would play a cop that they break through the door into this apartment and he gets shot. And he dies, and then for the whole rest of the scene, he lays there for like 10 minutes of this scene. He has to lay there on the floor, and he used to use that for his reel.
Wow.
That he would go, look at. I'm like,
Look at
damn,
me,
dude, that's some acting that you got going on right there, bro.
can you pretend you're dead?
It's like not as good as that.
I imagine he would have to like hold his breath so that he's not a corpse that's breathing.
Yeah.
I love watching like CSI or something, and they've got the corpse, and the woman's like the dead woman or whoever's breathing, and I'm like, she's okay, guys.
All right.
Like that.
Well, but that's much like being the dead body is much like having period non-specific shoes on when you're acting.
Yeah.
If everybody's paying attention to your shoes, then you're doing some shitty acting.
Yeah. There's an actor in Japan who he was a big name in the 80s, and then in the 90s, just like lost his career completely. And then in like the early aughts, he was asked to be a dead body, which is considered in Japan, like for a big actor to have to be a dead body in one of those shows. It's like, wow, this is how far I've sunk. But he was like, I'm gonna make this my comeback role. So he asked the director, he was like, could you please let me die on camera? And so they were like, okay, we'll shoot you on camera. But originally he was just supposed to be the dead body. They found him apart.
Sure.
So that guy like sold it. He was just like, yeah, I haven't told my family I love them. You know, like really sold it. And
I've been gay the whole time.
he actually like it made the news. It was like the best death in television history, and like whatever. And he got his comeback for like briefly until he did something else stupid. But like, and then that well, then he'll be a dead body maybe in
He got hit by a bus.
years.
Yeah. I've seen Kyle Haber play a dead body once, like with it's a web series called Channel Awesome YouTube channel where he's a guest at cons, mostly like in Wisconsin, Illinois, you know, like the Doug Walker of Channel Awesome. He does a lot of like skits and he does them with fellow guests at conventions that he's also a guest at. And there was he did one with Kyle Haber and Eric Vale, and where Kyle Haber is doing his narrator Dragon Ball Z voice, because you know, but the skit was he follows him throughout the entire con, the hotel, to his panel, to his restaurant, to his room, to his bed, still just constantly doing the narrator voice, and he's like, it was fine, but now stop. I'm scared, and he like suffocates Kyle with his pillow, and he's like, shh. And of course Kyle's just like kind of breathing. It was like, and he's like, oh man, like
my friend's gonna kill me with a pillow.
Yeah, and he's like, well, looks at the camera, like, well, I'll see you guys like maybe 10 to 20. So I just kill him, man. I wonder if I could blame this on someone else. Then he thinks and calls Eric up. Hey, come on in. He leaves. Eric comes in the hotel, and Eric, in typical Eric fashion, comes in. All right, where are those free hookers at? And he just sees Kyle like, oh,
Well,
and then
they're free. Are they actually hookers?
I think they're just slutty girls.
Slutty girls. Good for them. You know, that's what they're.
That's great. I'm all for slutty girls. It's when they ask for money.
When
that's
money
what
that
they
changes everything.
Yeah.
And I got to talk to Eric the next time I saw him after seeing that. He was like, dude, working with him was just like,
Well, who else has some questions?
Anybody else?
That's it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
How do you develop the voice you want to use as a particular role?
So for me, a lot of the characters that they tend to cast me as are usually just kind of my natural voice in either like a higher or a low. It's like within a certain range of just like slightly higher or slightly lower. I tend to try and, before actually going with like recording or anything like that, I try and, if I know the character before I go into the studio, I'll like look them up and see what they look like and try and get an idea of like how they would sound. But usually it's too fast to where like we don't know who we're even going to play until we get in the booth and we're looking at the screen. So it's just kind of like on the fly, you just kind of look at it and think, okay, what can I do with that? That happened with Chihaya Fudu. One of the character I play in that is Desk Tomu, is like a nickname for him. He's like this nerdy kid with like glasses, and he carries his desk everywhere because he like loves to study so much. And this kid's just this nerdy guy, and so like you can hear me I'm gonna make him sound like a real just nerd kid, and I don't get to do this very often. And so this is like a lot more fun to do than just, hey, what's up? It's my regular voice. So it's always fun to do more like off the wall stuff like that. So that one was more of like a natural sort of just, I see the character and the scene itself informed like how I like to go about making a voice for that. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, back in the old days, now we pretty much don't work off paper. We work on monitors. But always before, I'd get the script. Like the day when I walked in and signed the contract, you know, that day I'm going to record. And that's how we would do. I was like, okay, I need to see the character. Let me see him work a little bit, try to figure out, is this a big character? Is this a small character? Old? What's the age? you know, that starts making me decide what I'm gonna do. And then as for me, what I always liked, the ritual I liked was highlighting my lines. I'd go through and highlight where all my lines are. And so that would, in that highlight, it would give me, oh, there's a funny moment here. Okay, there's the dramatic here. And the director's right there, so then I'll be like, okay, what do you want to do here? That always worked really well. Now, there's just no time. You know, before it was, the rate was 45 lines per hour.
Wow.
35 or 45 lines per hour is what
I
1
wish
hour.
we had that much time.
Now it's 80.
Wow.
Yes. And I've been like, really? And they're like, well, you can't do it. I'm like, yeah, I can do it, but so a lot of it, many times you just go into the director. What do you want me to do? You know, that's usually the first thing, because I've done that before where I got to check up on the character and figure out what I'm going to do beforehand. And I go in, and about 15 minutes into recording,
Yeah.
the director's like, yeah, do it more like this. And I'm like, are we going to go back? Nah, we're not going to go back. And suddenly there's a change in my character, you know, a half an hour into the show. So, yeah, I mean, that's just the trick, is you've got to just make your choices quickly and then stick to them.
Commit to the bit.
Yes, commit to the bit.
I guess I can answer to, when I did a lot of narration work, and I had to do children's stories for this one company, and they would have like 5 animals would all be in this story, and you're the narrator, but you're also playing 5 characters basically that are completely different species. So I would try to consider the size of the animal, because your goal is if it's only audio, you don't have a visual for the kids. These are audio books, I think. So you want to be able to get the characters to be distinctive without even without looking at them. So you have a mouse character, and it'd be like, oh, I just can't find the cheese today. Oh, what do I do? And then if you have a dog character, I don't know, maybe we could, just completely change the character, and I would always try to do that, and the people that I worked with were always really excited about that, because apparently a lot of people doing narration work don't bother with that. If they're if they get the script that day, they just sort of go, okay, I'm just going to read it, and then if the director has any ideas or thoughts, they'll change it. But I go in and I'm like, okay, so this is what I was thinking. What were you thinking? And directors that I've worked with really appreciate that I would take the time to come up with something, because they maybe didn't, because they're just trying to get it done. And I would put notes in I would always print out my scripts, because I would get them that day. Otherwise, yeah, we didn't have monitors where I was working. But another thing that was interesting was one time I went. I normally don't have to audition because they know me. But when I went in for an audition for a commercial, and I read the line, and they didn't tell anybody what they wanted. But I noticed everybody was a foreigner, and this is in Japan. And I went in and I read the line, and my Japanese is pretty good, good enough that on the phone people don't necessarily know that I'm a foreigner. So I read the line, and it was in Japanese, and I was like, this is weird. Why are they bringing in foreigners to read this Japanese? And then the director stopped me, and he was like, hi, can you read that more like a gaijin, which is a slang term for a foreigner? And I was like, oh, I'm not foreign enough for you? Okay, let me try it again. And then I read it exactly the same way, as Japanese sounding as I possibly could, because I was just fuck you, man. That was some racist bullshit. What he wanted me to do was and I'll try to do this imagine an Italian guy being told to read, it's a spicy meatball, that, and he's fluent in American English, it's just insulting, kind of. So I read it exactly. I didn't get thrilled, but I was surprised. Yeah, they went out and they gave it to somebody who didn't speak Japanese, and they had to Romanize the Japanese. So of course her pronunciation was terrible, and that's what they wanted. And I'm actually Yeah, and I've been told before that I'm not foreign enough, like I need blonde hair or whatever, so I got out of any kind of like that sort of stuff and just went into like
Drawing.
narration. And,
Drawing.
Drawing and.
You like doing your drawing.
I do that too, yeah, but I did do a lot of acting on and off camera during my college days when I was in Japan.
I've been working on starting to do book narration, and it's an interesting field because I thought that I was just going to go, well, here's my reel.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, and they're like, no, that's not how we do things. So I was like, okay, so I've been trying to figure it out, and one of the things that I do as an actor is, well, I'm a troubleshooter by trade. I figure things out. And so I don't always, and as a typical guy, I don't read the directions. So in this case, I came into going, I don't want to know anything about this. I want to I just want to step into it and see what I can come up with. And one of the things people have been surprised about is like, there's one book, my friend Zero Reynolds. Yeah, he's a former voice actor, but he's also a writer and a creator. He's done a ton of stuff. Well, he's got a book that just came out called When the Man Comes Around. And it's an urban fantasy that takes place in Houston. And I love the story. And so I was trying to think of what I could do to put a sample together. And I asked him, can I narrate your book? And he was like, yeah, sure, yes. And so the thing that's interesting about that book, well, there's many things that are interesting about it, but in this case, the character of Mal is also the narrator. So he speaks out loud and then he narrates inside. So I decided that I was going to make his interior voice different than his exterior voice. And he loves it. I mean, it ends up, that's something people that they don't think about. It's like, yeah, your inside voice is not the same as the voice that comes out of your mouth. And they're like, oh, nobody does that.
Yeah.
Why not? What? So that's the good thing about not reading the directions.
Yeah, going in with something fresh and new and different. But like I don't know. I've done children's stories as like reading those for audiobooks and stuff. But like I've never done a novel. But I've done manuals. And I've done like the hearing impaired. Yeah.
Sure.
One of my very first gigs was I read the audio for like a navigation system for like cars. And what I thought was really strange, and it didn't occur to me that it was strange until somebody told me. They were like, I'm sorry, can you read these numbers again? And I was reading just numbers. And I was like, oh, okay, 5020, and they were like, no, you have to say
zero.
And I was like, oh.
Or Z. No, zero, sorry.
Yeah, and so I had to read all these numbers and then like go left, go right, 0, 5, 0, 0. You know, it was like the coordinates or something, and it was like 3 hours of just reading numbers. And you don't do character spin on those. You just read them straight. But I did another like a conference DVD. And they didn't give me the script until I got there. This is like a common problem. That's hard to do like a technical reading without seeing it beforehand because I was a pharmaceutical DVD and I was like, riboflavin? Or, it's just like, I don't know how to read some of these. And they were like, but you're a native speaker, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a like big pharma person. And the Japanese often is not, or the English translation is often not great. So I would have to sit there and be like, do you want this accurate or do you want me to read it as is? And I usually get paid a little extra if I'll go in and redo stuff too. But sometimes they want you to do it as is. They're like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, okay, slant woody, boo boo boo. And like they meant like, or bent woody was something I had to do once, and that was a slanted wooden shelf.
Yes.
And it was bent woody. And I was like, that is not the correct wording.
Yeah.
But you just go in and do what you
Somebody needs a splint for that.
Advil make headache big happy.
Yes. when in '89 when I went to Japan, when I was at University of Houston, and we went for a football game out there. I was a football player, I was in the band. But when we went out there, we were loving all the signs. And our favorite one was a Coke sign that said, "I feel Coke."
Yes. Yes, I've seen similar ones.
Saying, "Hey Brett, how you feeling?" "I feel Coke." I did a technical website for the petroleum industry.
Oh man.
And it was so that sight impaired people could learn about the petroleum industry and how it all worked. And in that, and that was I got paid good for that.
Oh,
but,
did it?
The problem was there was a lot of terms, and I think all of the terms were written by an oversexed 12-year-old because things like the annular fist or something like an upper Kelly cock. I'm like, come on, guys, what are you? I'm like, I'm supposed to do this with a straight face? They're like, we don't care as long as you record
Yeah,
it.
they're all like, well, what's wrong with her?
Would you like to get paid? I'm like, oh, yeah, say
Problem
all the
with our
words.
terminology, sir.
I got into a really good process by doing that is by I gained the ability to have the words on the page go right into my eye, bypass my brain, and come straight out my mouth.
That's a skill.
To where, after a while, I did all of these readings, and then I'm listening to it, I'm like, I said that? I don't even remember.
I get the same thing where you just go and afterwards you listen to it and you're like, oh, I did that, I guess.
Yeah, and it's great when fans will go, oh, I love it when you said blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't remember saying any of that. I'm trying to remember, there was one show, I think it was Narration Daikon Brothers, where it was like, you said what was your favorite part? I go, I did that whole show in 2 days.
Yeah.
It's like, so, I don't even remember.
Well, if you're doing 80 lines an hour, is what you said?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the studio for 2 hours, barking, because I played a dog in that game.
I hope so.
And I was like, is it? And they didn't have really great visuals for me. So I was like, is it a big dog? Is it a little dog? And they were like, make it bigger. And I'm like, okay.
Coming to America.
Oh yeah! You're a little dog. You're a big dog. You're hopping. Yeah. So I was in the studio. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, that's good, but make it like a smaller dog. Oh, okay. Smaller still. A little bigger. What kind of dog is this? It's a pug.
Show me the dog.
With that. So I was a pug, and the pug falls in love with a sexy poodle or something. And so I had to be like that kind of stuff. And I had to do that for 2 hours, and I had no voice the next day. And pro tip, don't laugh in the studio, even if it's really stupid. Because at one point I think
Just the director. Is this not serious enough for you?
Yes.
I know, I'm like a dog, and I'm like, I think the dog, it's a dancing game too. So I think the dog, his heart breaks, and he's like, "Arr!" like that. But then at one point, I think he's successful in wooing the poodle, and he goes, "Arr! Arr! Arr!" and just goes crazy, and they had me redo it 5 times, and I was just the next day I was like, I can't speak. But I was barking and laughing, and they were like, please stop laughing. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this is just seriously the silliest thing I've ever done for money.
I think it would have been fantastic for you to go through this whole thing and talk about, I did 2 hours of barking, and go through the whole thing. And I'm like, so you were a dog? You're like, no.
I was a cat.
No, I wasn't. Well, what were you? I don't want to talk about it.
That
So
was,
you
that was
had-
the
you had a
18
question.
and up game that I did.
So do you ever get emotional
afterwards, after reading or after you're writing like a manga, you're just like, man, that's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely shows where it's got more dramatic beats to it, especially shows now, like nowadays, it is very much a fast process, the whole simuldub / dubcast thing that we do where we're dubbing it as it comes out in Japan or something. But some directors like to take a little bit more time, so they'll like make sure that like the dramatic bits are like really spot on. So like when I was working on Darling and Franks with Clifford Chapin was the director for that, and he wanted to make sure that like all of the like heavy moments were like great. So like we would do like we would do a few takes of each of like just the regular conversational lines, but like when it got to those moments, he would be like, okay, now do that again, and just work a little bit more of like a shakiness, and it sort of made like just working over the line more and more kind of helps you internalize it a bit more, and there are like some emotional beats with that character. I think Mitsudu in that, and he specifically or particularly has like this huge arc throughout the show where he like starts off as this just jerk, and like you think he's going to be a jerk the entire show, but then he becomes a good boy, and then
He's a good
boy. And then, but no, it's got some great moments in that, and that one definitely stuck out for me, like working on that show, especially since it was my first Funimation show as well. So that was, yeah, that one definitely sticks out for me.
I had two that immediately came to mind, and at both times I unloaded on the director afterwards, and it's always at the end. So when I did Macross, and I was Roy Fokker in that, I don't know, so Roy has a great character arc, and in the end he's very jealous of Hikaru who's becoming the hero, and he is not the hotshot anymore. So he goes up in his mecha drunk, and it goes through this big huge fight, firefight, and comes back. His mecha is all shot up, but he makes it back, and he comes home to dinner with his girlfriend. And in it, she's cooking and he's playing guitar, and he ends up dying because he's been shot up. He's been shot. So, like, I had forgotten about that. Like, I didn't read ahead for this because I'd been enjoying myself so much, and I got there and we get to the end, and I'm like, wait a minute. And so now he's dead, right? And I'm like, wait a minute. And he goes, what? I go, this is stupid. And he's like, what? I said, first of all, this is a military operation, right? And I go, yeah. Well, in the military, if you're up in a firefight, what's the first thing that they do to you when you land? They give you a head-to-toe body check. How is it that they didn't do that? And he's like, Bret, it's called anime. Right? This is stupid. There's a better way to die than this way. And then the other one was for Go Danner, which was a lot of fun. But I was really frustrated in the end because I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched it. It's big on fan service. It's like, but it's a great story. It's a great situation set up of where it's semi-harem story, but the hero marries a girl that he saves, and then after his girlfriend is thought to be dead, and then so she suddenly reappears. And now she's staying with him because she's trying to get her memory back, and so hilarity ensues. So, but the problem was there was so much fan service, it was distracting. But not in the good way. And it would be serious scenes with, so as you can hear, like 10 years, 12 years later, I'm still like going, dude, why all the boob jiggle? Why do they have boob jiggle on a 12-year-old? This doesn't make sense. I don't want upshots. Thank you. The story is strong in itself. We can still have the boob jiggle. Even the robots had boob jiggle. That was how extreme this was. And so he's like, man, it's anime. What are you doing?
What was the series?
Go Danner. Merge of body and soul. Go Danner.
Nope.
And Go Saratari, and then his girlfriend or his wife, they both have mecha and they merge. So it's like marriage.
It's a myth, right?
Yeah, and it was really good, except that the first time that they merge, they're in the seat, and she goes, "What am I supposed to do?" And he goes, "You'll just know." And then a stick, the guiding stick comes up right between her legs. She goes, "What are you gonna do?" "Just grab a hold of it. I'll explain later." So yeah, anime.
So as from the writer's point of view,
Yes.
I've definitely, there are some scenes that I've written that I haven't, because I write quite a ways ahead before when I'm drawing, because I don't want to be like, so in Japan, you have like, depending on what your publisher is and what anthology you're published in, you may have a week before the next chapter comes out, you may have a month, you may have 2 months. But if you have a week, a lot of times those writers are kind of going off, they're just like on the fly, coming up with stuff, and then they have like a very like general idea of where they want to go, but it's not really planned out. And it's done that way because if sales are falling, they need to be able to change it, course correct. And you always know a manga is in trouble whenever there's a dramatic change in the
The
script.
new character shows up.
Right, the new, it's like your long lost father is here and he's taking over the school, and well, I might be talking about a specific series there, but, but
Fake it up.
anyway, and puppies and whatever, but like, but for me, while I'm doing independent work, I'm able to just kind of like go at my own pace and really keep in mind like what direction the characters in the story are going in, and like I've written up to points where like there are a couple of scenes where I've had to like sit back and kind of go, okay, I'm getting a little emotional here, because a lot of times you connect with the characters that you're writing, and you are writing, no matter what anybody says, you're always writing a little bit off of your own experiences, and there's a scene quite a bit in the future, so it's not, you probably forget about it if you ever try to read it, but there's a dog, and the dog has a bad ending. And like, I'm not sure how I'm going to draw it, because when I wrote it, I was in tears, because this character who isn't terribly emotional, this dog dies, and she gets a little emotional for the first time in the story, and like it was a little bit hard for me. And I mean, that's good. I'm assuming it's going to be hard for the readers as well to read that scene. It's an important character building moment, but like, if you're a writer and you're not connecting with your characters, and you're not getting even a little emotional when something happens with them, or you're not laughing along with them when, hilarity ensues or whatever, then I don't know how your readers are going to do that. So it's like, and it's hard for a writer, because you have to choose what's best for your story, you have to choose what's best for, not for the characters though, it's best for the story overall. So they often say, kill your darlings, and
your babies.
yeah, and that's hard to do sometimes, but I've definitely gone through script revisions that it went in a completely different direction than I intended, but I was like, overall this is going to be better for the story, and this is going to work better for the characters and their development. But sometimes it's hard, and like I didn't birth them, through labor, but like it's hard work to develop these characters, and I get really emotional sometimes when I'm drawing a scene that was really intense or whatever.
When Ike was doing TJ in a mall, I was kind of the
His wife, by the way.
Yeah, my wife, Ike Weaver, is out there at noon today. When she was doing TJ in a mall, I was kind of the unofficial editor, and she got emotional a few times because there was a few parts where I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And she's like, no, it's like, but he's supposed to do, it doesn't make sense. And we never had any fights or anything about it, but it would just be going, if you can answer this question, we can keep it, but if you can't answer the question, you need to change it.
Yeah.
And it was just at one point, it was just as simple of a scene of one character wanted to escape the situation, and he would usually do it with sex. And so he was trying to escape the situation with sex with the other character, and it didn't make sense that the other character would go along with it. And so we ended up having a 2-day discussion about that. Where I was like, well, I can understand why the one guy would do it, but why is the other one? That doesn't make sense. He wouldn't go along. There are not enough of a couples where he would just go along. She's like, well, what would he do instead? I was like, well, what if instead of getting into that situation, he uses that as a move? Because what he does is they're not trusting each other, but he wants to get away from the situation with sex, and he's drunk. And so now he wants the other guy to have his way with him. And the guy reaches over and leans down, and instead of kissing him, he reaches and grabs the keys and puts it in his pocket and backs up, and he's like, and she's like, oh, and it's like, yeah, see, that makes more sense. And he's like, no, you're not going to try to escape the situation, and you're going to stay right there.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
That's good.
there we go.
Yeah,
And stuff.
and stuff and junk. Any other questions? We've still got time, you guys.
Still got.
I feel like y'all are sitting out there judging us.
Alright.
I know with manga, what is your timetable getting one of those out?
I'm sorry, what?
What is your timetable getting one of those out for manga?
My start to finish.
Yeah.
So when I was working for other mangaka as an assistant, they were on a monthly schedule. So we would have 50-something pages maybe, and it would have to be done in a month. And you think, oh, that sounds like plenty of time, and it's not. It's not. There's
2
a lot.
pages a day? Basically,
You do it usually in steps.
Oh.
You don't finish a page and then move on to the next one. What you do is you do the rough, it's called shitakaki, which is just the rough pencils. And then you go through and you might do some cleanup, but then you're going to ink. A lot of times people who do weekly comics, they'll just ink. They won't do cleanup work. They just get it done,
Well, especially if it's digital too, because they can just drop
They don't
page
do,
in.
still, I work traditionally, and in Japan, most of it, One Piece is still traditional. I know others are moving into the digital media, but it's still very much more than half of the artists are probably still traditional. And so you've got it all in front of you. There are catastrophes like ink spills, those can happen. One of my jobs was just erasing when I first started, and you think, why would anybody hire you just to erase? Because that saves about a day's worth of time.
Yeah.
Erasing is heavy stuff. It's very time consuming. So it depends on what your deadline is. But if you have One Piece, that's 1 week, that he's probably got 6 or 7 assistants helping him out. But with me, right now I'm by myself, and I was I want to eat and I want to sleep. So I'm going to do whatever the schedule that best fits me. And what I do is I do 2 pages a week, but start to finish. And that's a schedule that I can keep without overworking myself. And I could probably do more, but as an independent artist, I also have to I have to publicize it, I have to handle sales, I have to do the website, I have to do all this other stuff too.
And you're a mom.
And I'm a mom, yeah, and I just went on a big hiatus, and fingers crossed my kid gets into daycare in April. If she doesn't, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I have
Mommy's
to get
gotta
back.
draw.
Yeah, I'll just put her in a cage and give her an iPhone and be the worst mom.
That's literally the joke that EK made why
Yeah.
she didn't want to have kids.
Well,
She's like, honey, you need to move off. Mommy's got to drink scotch and draw.
Yeah. I was like my husband wanted kids. I was kind of I could do 0 to 1. That's my preferred, how many children do you want someday? 0 to 1. I was okay with 0.
So you compromised half.
Yes, my child is very severely deformed.
Just a couple legs running around.
She has no legs and only 1 arm. But we're a Hatsu family, 2.5.
She's really strong in that arm.
But yeah, having a kid has been really hard on my schedule, and it's just been impossible. It's just been impossible.
She got drunk for the first time last night.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't had alcohol in like 3.5 years or something, because pregnancy plus breastfeeding and all that, and then just general. You have to be a mom, and it's not good to be drunk when you're alone with a toddler. So I'm not going to drink on the job. But like I had 4 drinks last night, and I went to bed with a little tipsy, and maybe drunk out.
She drunk out.
Oh my god! And I was like, it was like I was 18 again, and I was just like, I mean 21. I was 21 again, and I called my friend, and I was like, I'm drunk. He was like, what are you doing? You're 36, and I was like, I know.
These people made me drink.
And we went by a big fire pit, and we talked about booze.
Boasting balls.
Boasting, I was going to say boasting rolls.
Boasting rolls.
Boasting rolls.
Yeah. Another question?
And yeah.
So for voice acting, when do you get over the awkwardness of listening to your own voice, if ever?
Some people don't. I know a few friends of mine, they still don't like hearing themselves and things. For me, I wouldn't say that like, I feel like I wouldn't say that I love hearing myself in things, but like I also I feel like I started off wanting to do voice acting pretty early on. I started like doing online projects and stuff when I was 14. So like when I started off, I was very much like, I hate hearing myself, but I feel like just kind of doing it over and over again and just getting used to what you sound like. Because I feel like a lot of that disconnect happens because when you talk out loud,
you don't sound like
how you do on recording. So I had this project when I was in high school where we were doing like a video and stuff, and we had to record voiceovers for it. So I did my parts, and then my classmates who don't act, were just recording their voice for the project, and they listened back and they were like, ooh, I sound like that? Because when you're speaking, like what you hear is like being affected by like your skull and resonation and stuff. And so like a lot of people think that they sound a lot lower or more mature than they actually do whenever it's put to record. So that's usually what that kind of disconnect comes from. And then other people, they just like actually hate the sound of their voice like itself. But it's one of those things, it's either just through doing it over and over again, you just kind of get used to it, or you just don't, and you just kind of deal with it. I guess
I'm gonna go full blown ego like this. Full blown. I've never had a problem with listening to myself, and it's not like I love the sound of my voice. It's just like okay, yeah, cool. But then when people start complimenting you, when the guy who did the dub of Astro Boy, and he says to me, "Your voice has a third ball." And I was like, that's awesome, I'll take that. But I did radio before I did like acting on voice acting. And so I had to listen to myself after that. And you just learn. That's always my encouragement. I don't have the problem of going, oh, I sound like crap. Or I hate the sound of my voice. It's usually me going, okay, I missed that part there. I need to fix that for next time. It's so, when you speak on a mic and then someone hands you money, you kind of go, there it is right there. I'm doing the thing, and they give you, and now I'm going, I want more money to show how good.
I personally hate hearing myself. But part of it is also, like as we mentioned before, you're not given a lot of time to prepare. And so I hear my voice and I sound lower than I do in my head. I'm always surprised and like, man, I could be a guy. And then I'm always like, I sound so sexy in my head. But the other thing is what?
You sound great.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
That's nice. But I hate hearing my performance.
Yeah.
Because it's usually quick, and I didn't have time to really like rehearse. It's like always a cold reading every time, and I'm always, when I hear it, I go, I wish I had read it like this. But there's no time to change it. So I'll always, after I've done something, and if I have the privilege of like actually listening to what I've done, which is only for like commercial projects, and not like the navigation beeping or whatever. I don't hear those. But like I'll go, oh, I wish I could have read that differently, and I'll keep it in mind for like the next project. But I don't really do voice acting anymore, so it doesn't matter.
You know what horrible thing that I do? You're not supposed
What?
to do this. Is if you're reading it, if I'm in the middle of doing a take, and I don't like it, and I know that I don't like it, I will screw the take.
On purpose
To make sure they don't use it. I will do that.
That's good.
And I've had a couple of directors like, don't do that. I'm like, I'm sorry. I mean, if it's a director I trust,
Yeah.
I'll go. But if it's someone I don't trust, I'm going to screw the take, because in the end, that's me that's on there. Not, I mean, sure, they're my director, but I had too many directors that are like, that's art, let's keep going. And you're like, it's not that good. Well, no, we got to keep going. I'm like, I'm going to screw the take, sorry.
In cases like that, for me, what I do is I don't like crash and burn the take. I just kind of like stop in the middle of the sentence and then just start again.
Yeah.
And then they can't use the first half, and
Right.
they just have to use the second one. But like, yeah, it's, I guess kind of that's what I most take issue. Like if during like the first pass of like reading over something, or like that's mostly a cold read, and sometimes you make a decision and it's like completely wrong with what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's usually what it bugs me, is whenever I hear myself completely just reading that line completely wrong. So and usually I'm very good about it.
And you have to get better. What are your skill sets that you have to build?
Yeah.
Is being able to make choices quickly. That's the way it works. And so for me, I had the luxury at one time, I don't anymore, but I still do the thing of let me watch it first.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're having to match lip flaps, then I want to watch it first, because I'm going to get the timing down so they don't have to do so much work. It may take a little bit longer, but in the end, the audio engineer doesn't have to do as much work.
Yeah.
So then that's the trade-off, and they end up being okay with it.
Yeah, like a lot of people kind of insult dubs, which I don't think is fair, because like the time constraints and the volume of work that they have to do in without working off of anybody else, without sometimes even having like the video to look off of. Like they do the best that they can, and a lot of these voice actors are great. Like if they were in a play or something or film, they're great, but like a director can make or break it. And I've definitely been in a couple of projects where when I heard the finished project, I went, oh, that's what that was? Why didn't you say I could have done it differently?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it's the most frustrating thing, because the people who are watching it, they're all gonna go, man, that actress, she blew it. And it's like, no, that actress wasn't given proper details on what the scene
Sure,
was
just
about.
make excuses.
Hey, I'm also lifting you guys up here.
No, sure, take all the credit. That's
I
fine.
can't win. I'm just gonna go.
We have one more question.
Yes.
You said you did radio before you did voice acting. What station were you on?
In Houston, I was on KPFT.
Oh, I actually listened to that.
Yeah, but you were too young when I was doing it.
Oh, okay.
Back in the 90s, I did a show called Weightless, the most slim and attractive radio on radio ever. And it's an independent station, Pacifica station. And then before that, I was in Nacogdoches, Texas, at KTVQ, Nacogdoches Lufkin. Oh, it was a top 40 station. I don't even know if it's still around. But that's where I got my start. It was either be a convenience store clerk or be an on-air DJ. Same, paid exactly the same. Yeah, the joke in Nacogdoches is you can be the president of the bank and you're still being paid minimum wage. And so
If you're going to be paid minimum wage, might as well be a fun job.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've turned that. I still do a little bit. I do podcasts now, and I have a few shows. There's 2 Beers In that I do with my friend Monica, where we go to a bar here in Austin and have 2 drinks, and then talk about whatever, except no politics, no pop culture. And then we do that, and then I have one called 5 for 5, where I get people whose musical taste I'm interested in, and I have them give me 5 songs that I've never heard before, or maybe they think I've never heard before, and then I find the songs that go after it. It's like, here's the song, what would be a good song to go after it? And I've got about 6 of those in the can. So, it's fun.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Yeah. I know I had trouble.
So we're going to be doing autographs out there, but really we're there all the time when we're not in a thing.
Yeah.
And then at 3 o'clock, we're going to do how to do a script reading. And I'm working on a script right now that's just, I think it's about 2 minutes of a beginning of a show that I did.
Are you in this room?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, my making manga panel is actually at 2 p.m., so it's the one right before you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, and
So-
if you wanted to come for a double feature,
Yeah. There we go.
Learn how to make mine.
Make mine.
Make mine.
Thanks, y'all.
make mine.